Hey everybody, a happy Friday to you. Thanks for ending your week with us here on Northern Life. Thanks for another week of inviting us into your home and hanging out with you and yours, with us and ours as well. So, been a great week. Us and ours? I don't know, but it's been a great week though, honestly. It's been, closing out March here pretty soon, and life is pretty darn good. The weather's getting better, and we're pretty chipper today, I think, right?
Super chipper. I think we're ready to rock.
Did a fun blindfold earlier today that we'll be sharing in a little bit, talking more about, here's what we did. We did a typing contest between the two of us to see who was faster, who had less errors, all that fun stuff. And it was Ben that put this on, so we have no idea what the responses were, what we actually got,
results are going to be.
What we scored. So we're going to find that out live on air, recorded, of course, at some point in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have that story for you in a little bit, probably.
It was in a dark room as well, and it was on a keyboard we're not used to. So there are different factors in it too.
It was almost like we were being interrogated. It was kind of weird.
It did feel like that kind of room.
Yes, the swinging lights and everything like that.
We had to perform under pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're used to it, though.
We are used to it. Let's talk about another team member. Back on Wednesday, I had the pleasure of getting to chat with the famed American astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've never said astrophysicist so many times in my life besides this week. And if you missed it, you can find it on our website and on our Northern Life Facebook page. But it was actually a bigger day for Chief Meteorologist Adam Lortz. That is because he is a huge fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. So before I recorded my conversation with him, Adam had the chance to talk to him and just kind of say thank you for all that he does.
He was saying that he obviously said thank you and that he listens to his podcast and everything, but he had a question he wanted to ask him, but he's like, I don't want to take up too much of his time because he got to interview him as well. So pretty cool, though, that he got to meet one of his big heroes. Yeah. Fantastic dude. Very talented at taking something that's really complicated and making it very easy to understand, all with such like a soothing voice. I could listen to him talk forever.
I think a lot of, I don't want to put scientists all in one group, but most scientists who I've met or maybe had in class before, like a teacher, a lot of the times you need charisma in order to make your point. And so I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is someone who has a whole lot of charisma.
He's got a heaping helping of charisma. I want him to read me bedtime stories at night. He's got that deep, very good voice right there. Yeah,
makes me want to learn more about space.
Yes, the cosmos, bring it on. I love it.
Yeah. So hey, last night my special feature aired at 10 o'clock on Northern News Now. So if you missed that, you can find that full story on our website. But today, we're going to be sharing my entire conversation with Emma Shannon, who is the therapist with Inside Edge Therapy in Duluth. So let's get into that first part of our conversation. First, can you tell me more about your background and what you do at Inside Edge and who you help?
Yeah, sure. So I have a master's in social work, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And I work with individual athletes just on mental blocks like performance, confidence, performance anxiety. And I also work with teams. So I'll go into teams and kind of get to know the team culture and what they're hoping to achieve as a group, and work with them on those types of goals in that setting too.
And I'm really looking forward to this conversation today because I'm taking on Grandma's Marathon as my first ever marathon. I've done the half 10 years ago. While I'm fairly confident in being able to do somewhat well in it, I think one of the things that I find myself worrying about is failing. Setting out on this grand thing and then ultimately coming up short. Is self-doubt something that even the most elite athletes experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that is hard these days is that we're so inundated with social media that we see people succeeding all the time, and we don't necessarily see what it takes in order to get to that finish line. I think of the Olympics recently with the USA hockey teams and Megan Keller and Jack Hughes. If they would have thought that they couldn't score that overtime goal, we would have a much different story. So self-doubt is something that definitely creeps in for a lot of people. And the interesting thing, if we go into the neuroscience of self-doubt, is it's two competing factors. You have the amygdala, so this is my hand brain. You have the amygdala, that's your brain stem, right? That's your fight or flight that gets activated. And what goes around is your prefrontal cortex, that's in the front of your brain, and that's your forward thinking, your goal oriented. That's probably what decided to do Grandma's Marathon, right? Yeah. But as you're going through the process, things are difficult. And when we're presented with a challenge, our amygdala gets fired up and sees it as a threat. What the difference is we can't tell the difference between a physical threat and just a threat like a big goal. So our body doesn't know the difference. And that's when self-doubt starts to creep in. We start to look for reasons why not, why I couldn't, why I might not be able to do this thing.
Oh, that's just part one.
Yeah, a lot of stuff left to air here.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out, because it's such a niche thing to go into, what inspired her to get into this topic and this subject? Why is she a therapist in this regards?
Well, it sounds like she was a former college hockey player and someone who had a lot of expectations placed on herself by herself.
Sure.
And so wanted to become someone who, at least for reading her website too, InsideEdgeHQ.com,
Yeah.
wanted to be that person that she wishes she had when she was younger, to help her be, the athlete while also the person off the rink.
Well, it's a super interesting topic that all of us go through. So everyone, literally everyone, can relate to this story. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're excited to share the next few parts coming up after the break here. But before we head to break, for the 9th year in a row, Finland, apparently the happiest place on Earth. According to a new analysis from Oxford's Wellbeing Research Center, its World Happiness Report lists Iceland in the number 2 spot for countries, followed by Denmark. So that means all top 3 nations are Nordic. Now the U.S., ranking 23rd on the happiness list. The center says it compiles happiness data by asking people about their subjective well-being.
Are those one of those countries that have less than a 5-day work week? Is that true? Or do they do the 4-day work week?
I don't know. Sounds like the Two Harbors school schedule.
Yeah, right.
4 days a week.
Hey, I was happy from 6th grade to 12th grade. That was great.
I would have been too.
Yes.
I would have been too. I'll have to look that up.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
hey, coming up, we'll continue our conversation with Emma after the break here on Northern Life. Welcome back, everybody. Let's continue my conversation with Emma Shanda with Inside Edge Therapy here in Duluth.
And why do you think, from your experience, why do people, and myself included in that group, often talk themselves out of even trying something new? It's like, I would love to take up knitting or crocheting or
Yes,
something
totally.
like that. But you go, that takes a lot of effort. I don't think I'd be good at it. Why do you think we stop ourselves from even starting or trying?
Yeah, this is actually super interesting, Ryan. One of my, I work on this a lot, and it's interesting because it's the stories that we tell ourselves. It's something that's been developed over time, and it becomes an unconscious story inside ourselves that we start to weigh everything to. It's from feedback from other people. It's from data of other things that we've accomplished. It's from, so peers telling you what you're good at, what you could be better at, that type of thing. And when we measure up a big goal against the self-beliefs, sometimes we call them self-limiting beliefs, an unconscious process starts. And it says, this does not compute. No, we are not in that category. So we need to abort mission, right? And one of the things that I work with athletes a lot on is to become aware of those self-limiting beliefs, because it's such an unconscious process that it does sometimes take a third party or a neutral party to be like, oh, wait a second, I'm hearing that you have this story about yourself, that you are not a marathon runner. And how could we reframe that? And there's this really powerful word, and it's so simple, but it's yet, right? So maybe your story is that you're not a marathon runner, but if we can reflect on that and say, I'm not a marathon runner yet, that leaves the possibilities and allows for room for you to develop that new story.
Leave the door open a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And when it comes to that self-doubt, you touched on it there, how harsh can our own voices be to our own well-being?
Oh my goodness, our internal voices are so much harsher than anything even the external world would ever present to us. But again, that goes back to that your brain's searching for threats, right? It's if you don't finish this marathon, you're taking it as a moral failure, right? A threat to your identity. And as human beings, our ancestors needed to be part of groups, right? So if there was a moral failing within the group, you had to leave the group and you might not survive. So our brains are still doing that, even though that's not the issue right now. And it's seeing this thing as a moral threat. So if we can untangle identity from accomplishment and instead see failure as data, the accomplishment becomes much easier to make.
And what role does confidence play when it comes to overcoming these thoughts in our head? Where does confidence come from within ourselves?
So confidence is one of the things that I talk a lot about with teams, particularly, is confidence is, we think it's a destination, but it's not necessarily a destination. It's something that comes and goes and that we visit often, just like happiness comes and goes, anger comes and goes, all those types of things. But confidence is built through self-efficacy. And the self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to do something hard, right? A marathon is hard. And your belief in being able to do it can build confidence. Reps, so like the amount of training that you're doing and that you complete successfully, equals more confidence. Every time you're able to complete something that's a little bit hard, your self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to accomplish a task increases. And that's how we build confidence. And we have to remember too that every day you're not going to feel confident.
Right.
But if you're able to still do whatever it is you need to do, that will build your self-efficacy. It's doing the hard things even scared.
And, as I've been training too, getting ready, I think the longest I've ran so far is about 10 miles in this training. And I get done with 10 miles and I go, probably at mile 6, I go, my brain is telling me, you can stop. This hurts. You feel free to just stop running. I'm curious, what does the voice in our head tell us to stop when things get hard, either running or even other aspects of our life?
So I have a really kind of a silly example of this. I'm a mom to toddlers, and getting toddlers anywhere and trying to be on time is like one of the most frustrating things ever.
While keeping your composure, I would assume.
Exactly. And what my brain starts to do is my prefrontal cortex, my forward thinking, that knows toddlers are slow, that knows that mile 6 is hard, that understands that running a marathon is going to be difficult, and there's going to be difficult things along the way, gets turned off because I'm activated. My heart rate's going really fast. My hands might be getting sweaty. All those things are going on, so I can't access that prefrontal cortex. And what I need to do, and maybe on the runs too, is to remind myself that hold on a second, like this isn't an emergency, right?
Yeah.
Like we will get there when we get there. And it's not an emergency. And what that signals to your body is that there isn't a physical threat. You don't need to run away from this thing. You don't need to fight this thing. You don't need to freeze up, right? There's no physical threat. There is no emergency.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
This whole time I've been thinking, I know we've been talking about it, but it's just a physical attribute that's kind of preventing me from doing marathons, but it's also a big, huge mental thing as well.
It's so much mental.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
crazy. Well, hey, we'll finish our conversation with Emma coming up.
And what advice would you have for someone who is watching our conversation here, who has something that they do want to try, but they are afraid to fail? Or look silly in the process too, because I feel like many times growing up, even being on TV sometimes I go, oh, I'm going to look silly while doing this, but getting over that mental hurdle.
Totally, yeah. That comes back to that identity threat, right? It's that if I look silly in front of my friends, I'm not going to be part of the group anymore. And that really stops us a lot of the times from trying hard things, is when we feel like our identity is on the line. And if we can separate our identity from our accomplishment, we're able to do harder things. The other thing I'll say to that too is that the process is so important, and confirming to yourself that you can do hard things, and you can do hard things even when you're scared, is really important, because that's going to just prove to you that whatever that thing was, that marathon, or the fear of failure, or the fear of looking silly on TV, isn't as scary as you thought it was going to be. And it all correlates back to that self-efficacy, that belief that you can do hard things.
When it comes to your clients, without giving away their
Sure,
private details, what are maybe some common themes that you're sensing from student athletes or athletes in today's world?
A lot of student athletes, particularly like high school or even maybe a little bit younger, it's the peer influence. It is the looking silly in front of my friends, or a lot of comparison. There's a lot of social comparison happening, and even I think back to myself as an athlete in high school, and I had big dreams and goals. I'm going to play D1 hockey. That was my goal at 16. And as I started to develop, I started to really compare myself to my peers around me. And I started writing that self-limiting belief. I'm not as good as these girls, so I'm not going to be able to make it. And what I really needed was for someone to sit across from me and say, like, I hear that self-limiting belief, and maybe you're not as good as them yet. And it wasn't necessarily a skill thing, and it was more of like, what's going on between my ears? And I needed someone to help me, untangle that and to get better.
When it comes to the topic we've been talking about today, something challenging, or even just life itself, is there one piece of advice that has really propelled you forward in a way you didn't think was possible?
Yeah, I think one of the phrases that always sticks with me is the "do it scared." That fear is a feeling, just like all the other feelings that we talked about. It's not a reason why not. And sometimes we have to do things scared in order to reach our goals. If we're thinking about our future self, like I could ask you, like, how would your future self feel finishing that marathon?
I'd feel like I could do anything.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a reason why, too, do it scared, because your future self is going to feel amazing. And we want to always work towards what our future self wants.
That's beautiful. And Emma, is there anything, too, that I haven't asked today that you'd love to share with our viewers about life, about getting through the day, about parenting some toddlers?
Well, it's not parenting toddlers. I don't have any advice about that. That's not my area of specialty. But what I would say is that, self-doubt and these self-limiting beliefs, they're all normal. And we all experience them from day to day. And we all have different abilities to challenge these thoughts. And one of the best things that we can do is to build a community around us that's going to help us feel accountable. And not just necessarily accountable in the sense that we're just going to be like, if you were like, I don't want to do the marathon, I'm like, okay, we don't want to do the marathon. We're going to know you and know that that's truly a goal that you want to accomplish. And we're going to hold you accountable to that goal and keep pushing you, even on days that you don't want to.
Welcome back, everybody. I think there's a lot of people that you meet in life where you have a conversation with, you go, I think I'm better off in my life because of having that chat. And Emma was definitely someone who I feel more calm and collected after chatting with her.
I'm very thankful that you aired that entire story on these airwaves because, obviously your package, you can't air that whole thing later on tonight on the news. So very, very cool. One of my favorite things that she was talking about is entering the word yet into your vocabulary, Just because you think you can't do it, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to do it down the road with some practice and mental working, of course. Yeah. So a very interesting conversation right there.
Definitely then related it to, investing too, or like retirement investing. You go, I'm going to do this now for my future self, and the same thing, treating yourself kindly and making sure that you're your own champion. Because, I'll be honest with you folks at home, like I'm 30 years old and I'm still, battling, my own inner thoughts when it comes to seeing the guy in the mirror. And so it's important to say, who's actually telling you these things? Is it you or is it other people? But truly, you're telling yourself things that are not necessarily correct all the time.
Amen. There's a lot of stuff going on up there that you have no idea what's going on up there.
So if you are a coach or a student athlete or a parent, be sure to get in touch with Emma. You can find her work at Inside Edge Therapy at InsideEdgeHQ.com. She does workshops. She works with teams. A big thanks to Emma for all her help today. And big thanks for joining us this week. We love you. We'll see you next week.
Find some time to throw a line or just head outside to unwind. That's the life in the great North Woods. Hike or bike, whatever you like. Get out in the day, enjoy the night. Yeah, we got the life in the great North Woods. Yeah, we got the life in the great North Woods. Yeah, this is Northern Life.